Alex Answer here. It is November 12th in the year 2017. Coming to you from off the grid somewhere out there in rural Colorado. Very special thank you to those of you that have been supporting on a monthly basis, to those that have started recently over at Patreon and in other ways, and to those that are subscribing at outsidethebox.vhx.tv. So let's talk this morning about some of those things that, at least for me, cause alarm bells when people purport to be spiritual and purport to have a serious discussion about the battle of good and evil on earth today. It's amazing the amount of things that they leave out. I don't think it's energetically healthy for people to spend their time attacking others, but certain things need to come up because I want to remind people that empathy for all human beings is critical. Truly, to have compassion for all living creatures. But there are some that purport to have compassion for all living creatures that do not even have compassion for all living, innocent, human lives. This is how thick the propaganda has become. I look at my YouTube feed. I look at what is being put out there in the larger world of reporting. People know what not to report. It's not just the writer at the news agency who wants to keep his job or her job. It's today's YouTuber that may not want to upset their audience. Today's YouTuber, even myself, we may self-censor because we don't want to be attacked. We may self-censor because we don't want to look at it ourselves because it hurts. It hurts to look at and report on the injustices taking place to others. And balance is needed. We have to take care of ourselves, right? But it's not just ourselves. Honestly, how much effort does it really take for us to make sure that we eat enough each day, that we get enough sleep, that we not destroy ourselves with alcohol and narcotics and other things as this country goes through an opiate crisis? How much effort should it take a human being to not destroy themselves and to be able to see clearly enough to realize who some of the real victims are? See, they want us to play victim. Those of us that live in this country that have had so much more opportunity than others, and also to do so much good with our technology, with your voice on YouTube and the message. And we ask ourselves, are we living up to that? Are we letting our voice be our weapon of choice? Or are we letting them turn us into their victims? And someone could be a victim of their mind control without even knowing it, making it very difficult to overcome in some cases, which is why awareness is key. You know, the reason I bring up Laura Eisenhower and Alfred Weber is for a specific reason. Here's someone whose even physical beauty as well as voice and message I was drawn to in 2012 when they were discussing the archons initially. When I heard that term archon and I saw it in the feed, something told me, you know this word. archon. Even though I didn't have the highest view of some of Alfred Weber's videos and his message and what I believe to be a real lack of truth, I did acknowledge him in my solar flare presentation in 2013, in the acknowledgments slide and in the PDF, because he had also presented a video about the changes the sun could bring our world. I just didn't know how many other false teachings and ideas and individuals he mixed his information up with, himself up with. And the list is very long. So I didn't feel the most positive vibe from Alfred Weber, who was also at the same conference in 2013, but he kept his distance. And I saw the look in his eyes when I got off that stage, when I finished the 2013 solar flare presentation. It wasn't a smile. Maybe it was a sense of competition. Maybe it was a sense of, who the F are you? But what I can tell you is, despite the fact that I had a positive response initially, looking at his information 5 years later, who could forget the 2016 prediction that his friend Andrea Passaggio, right, would win the presidency, maybe have a Jesse Ventura ticket. Thank God we're past that point and that false hope. With Laura, like many others, right, we get drawn to the beautiful spiritual teacher, or the person that seems to be saying something that the others are not, until we peel back the layers of the onion. And I ask myself, as we go and do the half-hour mark and the 1 hour mark and the hour and a half mark of some of these interviews that go on and on and on, whether it be with people like Alfred or James Gillen or Michelle Walling, the list goes on. How are they able to continue to promise this collective shift in consciousness, or to catapult that propaganda, when so many are dying around the planet? As white supremacy rises within the United States, as people lose their Google AdSense, as these weapons of war are being developed, why, even within the realm of conspiracy, are they only able to tackle safe issues that won't offend anyone? Anyone that has a political messiah. So in this day and age, what is that? It's false flag events. It's the same old issues. It's chemtrails. And now we have pedogate. My question for the love and light crowd: where is the love and light for the other children? The children Cynthia McKinney talked about when she grilled Donald Rumsfeld in 2005. Why, 12 years later, if we are supposedly so much more awakened, is there not greater compassion and empathy? Why is there greater silence? Why have we seen a complete death of the anti-war movement? There may be some good people within Antifa. There may even be some good people within the Donald Trump support base that just simply don't know any better, that are easily led. So they can be somewhat decent as an individual, but they may be willing to give their power away to the collective when their voice is needed at the individual level, not under a flag or a banner or on a side. We need to hear from those men and women on the planet that are conscious enough to still feel, that are conscious enough to still speak. Because to evolve the soul while incarnated in human form, there are certain tasks. There are certain unique tasks. They're there for you and you alone. And there are certain tasks that are there for me and only there for me. Then there are certain things that involve all of us. Wisdom is identifying where things are and where they're not. I don't believe that our society is slowly waking up I feel that it is unfortunate that people are not attempting to address the apathy with regards to so many being demonized. And how could they be evolved if they are afraid that they would upset their followers or fans that may have their racial leanings, that may have their political messiahs? When it comes to whether or not we view someone's spiritual teaching or message with value, their color should never be the issue. Their gender should never be an issue. But we as men and women are naturally attracted to the beautiful woman. That's right, I said men and women. It's almost something embedded within our DNA to constantly chase the woman. Even for women to chase women. And it has to do with biology, because the female form can create life. In that sense, she is unique. However, because people are worshiping certain physical things to really fill a void of that lack of feminine energy within their lives, sometimes people become intoxicated by their own delusions, by their own lies, by their own lusts, by their own obsessions, by their own infatuations. So we live in the society of the $50 golden Buddha, which I've called Hawthorne Avenue of Portland, Oregon. You can have a beautiful Buddha or statue, but it's really about selling that statue and profiting off of the teachings of the Buddha to that business owner and many, many others, as opposed to understanding some of those teachings or other spiritual teachings around the world. A lot of people have confused, right, the pleasure of materialism in this day and age with spirituality. They have confused the ability to receive the energy of many other people through social media as I don't know. I don't know exactly how some people view it. But I know that there can be an enhanced sense of ego and alter self. I know this firsthand with social media and how, it doesn't take a genius to realize there is our real self and there would be a virtual version of ourself. Okay. It's not a very complex understanding. And so if virtual versions of people's selves are interacting with each other as a primary, not as a add-on, but as a primary, then how do people really know each other? If people are censoring what it is that they post on social media or what it is that they say on YouTube, if they purport to be a teacher of knowledge and information, then are they really teaching? Do they really have something to teach? What I wonder about some of these individuals that get, you could even say, a bit too specific with describing reptilian group A, reptilian group B, they sure seem to have a lot of specifics. But yet they sure seem to be holding out on the idea of the Trump or the Donald draining the swamp. How can individuals, right, be tapped in to ideas so complex to where they're specifying different alien groups? See, when I say archon, I'm generalizing that entire arena of all possible malevolent tampering with human affairs, with lower level spirits serving that grid, that dark fallen grid of consciousness, the tyranny and oppression that some of these spirits live in, to where they literally, these archons, have other groups working under them. So when I hear somebody 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Alfred and Laura, 2011, 2012 videos, and then we fast forward to 2017, it's what they're not saying, just like with the mainstream media. And so here we have Alfred. That's right, my old friendly pal from the old days, Alfred Weber. Been a little sarcastic there. Giving grotesque details for several minutes of babies being cooked and eaten by the elite, but yet not one word with regards to other children in other countries being harmed. What drives the pedogate hypnosis to divert them from all the world's affairs to where the only victims are Americans? And how can some people, right, be led astray by the trail of thought of Americans being the victims and the only victims, or whites being the only victims? How this can take people away from the injustice of others that have been raped, murdered, destroyed, hung, left for dead. How have so-called spiritualists found a way to live with themselves? How do mothers like Laura and others live with themselves each day, never speaking about the other mothers that have lost their children, or have had their children locked up at Guantanamo Bay, or have been raped in front of their children, or have had their doors kicked in by troops from our country? How can they live with themselves? They lie to themselves. This is how. This is why. Because if they were honest with themselves and walking in the light, Laura, Alfred, others, they would have to say something. Michelle Walling, they would have to say something other than we're going to 5D tomorrow. They would have to say something other than the friends that would hang around my mom in the 1980s. I saw people like them and Alfred and Laura and others as a little boy. They come in each decade and they tell us the next decade we are to be liberated, and they are awakening to this ET program, and they can do it with a straight face without once mentioning the culling taking place. And it's interesting because for so many years, people talked about the Galactic Federation of Light and the Great White Brotherhood and the rapture. And so now we have these obsessions with the tribulation, and we have the New Age rapture theology. It's always dovetailed catastrophobia periods. And even though I talk about the solar cycles and catastrophobia, I think I'll be back today. I think today's going to be a big day of video for Alex Ansary. Thank you, subscribers. You make this possible, and you've made my dreams a reality. I'm not here to attack Alfred. I'm not here to attack Laura. I'm here to tell them, if they can hear the sound of my voice, that I am so disappointed with them as leaders and speakers of so many. The point where I'm crying inside that mothers like Laura Eisenhower could remain silent about so many mothers that have lost millions of their children because they were born in the wrong country at the wrong time. I think that it is immature of Alfred to play up Laura's DNA above the rest of us that also have a spiritual message to share with the world. There's so much more Laura could share about how they're demonizing white women that bring in less white babies into this world as white genocide. Perhaps there are many fans of Laura's as well that are tapped into this. The death of the white race is upon us. The death of the white race is upon us. And people are becoming possessed by that satanic, false light way of thinking. I think Laura could help many souls on this planet by addressing that archon card trick. I think Laura has that power. I think Alfred has that power. I think James Gilliland has that power. I think Michelle Walling has that power. I think others have that power. But instead, they truly seem to believe that we really are waking up. And so within that framework then, it's like we really are back in old New Age distorted teachings, right? Where if we are aware of something negative, that we're being negative. Or that if something bad happens to someone, it's their karma. I'd like Laura and others to explain to me how that's not their thinking system. But in reality, the more things change, the more time goes on, the more things seem to be the same. With the persecution of the real Gnostics amongst us, people exiled within spiritual communities for asking their peers to have compassion for those that don't have a voice. I want to see a world where people aren't put up on a platform and celebrated because of their perceived superior DNA and beauty. And then when Alfred does that, I thank him. Because again, he brings out that psychosis into the light for us to look at. The perception of those with more evolved DNA than the rest of us, based on their name and their appearance. And then others whose names and appearances are viewed as lesser. And they are thus like the book series Left Behind, right? While the others are saved by the good aliens in the spacecraft, right? Because the more I hear what they view of the 2020s, it's like I'm right back in the 1980s. All over again. I'm going to end this here and come back and expand. You are listening to the one man in America that has warned about really what you call a more authentic, real, I wouldn't say a white genocide, but an attack on white Americans when this country is occupied. And the types of white slavery and things of that nature to follow. I see the people that are obsessed on the dark elements of the pedogate today, looking away from the atrocities that have been happening for decades in the Middle East. Looking away from the consequences that are going to follow the actions of the current puppets in power. The inability for them to look beyond the next few years at what is actually coming to this country and the white women that live in this country at the hands of foreign troops, right? Their inability to see the obvious shows us they don't see anything. Alfred Weber for years has been promising Ascension 2.0, 2025. I have no problem with evolving beyond this body. I want to know how the world is waking up as it is killing so many. I want to know how you have established, all of you that purport these lies, how more people being killed is raising the vibration of this planet. I want to know where the intuition has gone for people to realize when people are being demonized because they've been marked for elimination, demonized as rapists, demonized as subhuman. And for so many in the conspiracy and spiritual communities to keep their mouths shut, I want to know what's really in your DNA. Because it does not even seem to be human at times. for so many mothers of so many children to be so silent about the other mothers that are either losing their children or being removed or kidnapped from their children's lives? What kind of so-called spiritual women could be so silent about the atrocities taking place to others, and to be so naive as to what is waiting in the wings for future American generations? You want to talk about exiting the matrix? You want to talk about ascending? You want to talk about becoming spiritual? Let's do that. But we don't do that by clicking our heels together 3 times and saying there's no place like XYZ, and just focusing on the same image, mantra, prayer to particular deities or archangels. We actually have to do the work to ascend out of this reality. And it takes multiple lifetimes for many of us. It is not something that you learn when you come across. What we do is we find information that can help lead us to the truth. And things that relate to the truth relate to us facing ourselves and developing emotional maturity, developing feelings for others that are harmed, even coming back to a system and a world, a fallen world, that we helped create, for we are not victims. Whether it be called a curse or a lesson, for some of the souls that are here now, they have been here for some time. They have been here for some time to pay off their penance for a great sin against creation a very, very long time ago. So these beings or entities, many of them have splintered out and fallen back into the earth and have been working their way back up to the heavens for many, many lifetimes. And in order for them to rise, others must rise as well. So this is not a game. This is not a commercial. This is not a call to action. This is an early morning commentary on how things are. There is work to be done here, now, to ascend beyond this matrix when we pass beyond this lifetime. Others that are promising multiple planet options within this lifetime, as if this is some sort of buffet, are lost. And they're leading others into their little lost bubbles as well. So their time is consumed on these false ideas of how things are. And the reason they're there, and some of these people even have the support, is because they're there intentionally to lead people astray, because time is valuable. And if people's time is spent giving their energy to these misdirectors, assuming that the cabal, they always like the cabal, instead of using, like more accurate words or other words, people just latch onto these talking points that they read about on the internet without any real dealings with what's going on, or being attacked physically, emotionally, verbally by those that have been mind controlled by this matrix. Now, there are those that speak about the matrix and breaking free that have never really come under attack from the archons on this world, because they have never really sought to threaten their food. But there are many ways to threaten their food. But ultimately, that is going against the system. It's threatening the food of the spiritual parasites that are waging war upon the human species. And it doesn't mean that that's easy. It doesn't mean that, I myself, that I've attempted to do that, the various levels of success, and a human being might find themselves seemingly punished or even turned into a victim by these archonic forces if that human seeks to expose them. And what the human has to learn how to do if they're going to go upon that path is realize what they're up against and realize that even if they're harmed, we have to work to not let them victimize us, even in our own mind, because that is how they seek their power over us. It is a power over psychology. It is a power of suggestion. And ultimately, we are the ones that have to empower ourselves. We have to be able to face these atrocities. We need to be able to show compassion for all human beings and living creatures. Okay? Because unless we do that, each minute that ticks away that we're spending in these distorted realities is a minute lost that could be spent speaking for those that don't have a voice. There are various levels of ego death that a person may experience or may want to experience to evolve their consciousness. I've experienced some of those. There are many more to go. If I am truly to help more people, the amount of people that I would like to help or speak for, I would have to go through another level of that. And another level of walking over the Rubicon, if you will, beyond the fear of death, beyond the fear of persecution, for even willing to speak for those that have no one to speak for them. That is a truly very real level of fear of the dark side that many alleged truth tellers battle with. And many of them may not even realize when they compromise and back down and change their tongue so they can appease their audience and appear attractive, spiritual, desirable. But as David Icke himself has said, if only more people would take that advice, including at times himself. The greatest prison that we will ever live in is the fear of what other people will think about us. It's great advice, David Icke. I'd like to see you also give the same energy you've given Alex Jones, who has divided so many and led so many into darkness. I'd like to see you give others some of your energy and time as well. People that aren't also stuck in their own illusions of separation, people willing to go deeper into this discussion with regards to this blood sacrifice taking place in the Middle East. You know, that area of discussion that makes even many of my own guests uncomfortable, my own viewers uncomfortable, my own listeners uncomfortable when I talk about the ongoing blood sacrifice on the earth to other human beings other than ourselves here in the United States. Yeah, that issue that's unique to this channel. Will there be a wake up within the population with regards to that? I don't know. I don't know if society is going to wake up to that. I know that elements of society will wake up to that. And those individuals, whether they be white, black, or other, that they will expand as souls by being able to understand concepts such as empathy. Or do to your neighbor as you would have them do unto you, like basic concepts like this. impact the soul in specific ways when we don't just use that for war propaganda, religions, but we actually use those teachings in our own lives for the positive. Again, those that are using Jesus. Shout out to I Only Kneel for Jesus t-shirt guy on YouTube, claiming to be a victim with 500,000 views. Claiming to be a victim as a white man with blue eyes with 500,000 views. Now, if this psychology of this man and others like him doesn't wake you up, and what this means for the future of America, as many of these Americans appear to have a destiny with being humbled, including those that think they know it all about World War III, including those that think that they're reporting on World War III and educating millions of people. Actually, some of these individuals, AMTV and others, are set to have their own God shot and awakening. Not just something that's forced for a YouTube audience that's going to play along with that and get the ooh, ah, and almost get wet when the person lies to your face to the next level as they sell another chunk of their soul for money, numbers, energy, and the worship of the self. Everything they purport to be against, they indeed are. I will embrace, I will acknowledge, and I will accept my role here on the earth to bring these ideas to you and others. Because I, in my heart, am invested in setting us free from this matrix soul prison. I'm Alex Yancey, signing off from this early morning of November